Alright guys, so we're going to do another breakdown here today. This one's going to be of Conor McGregor, something a little bit different, but at the same time there's a lot of similarities. One of the things that actually helped me out a lot with my own personal mechanics and throwing a football was starting to do some Muay Thai and boxing classes, and that I got to better coordinate my hips and my core and my arms and utilize all that together in how I throw. And I think that what we could do here is really get some great correlations within what Conor McGregor does to what we could add to the throw. So one of the great things that he does is utilize that hip opening in order to maximize his ability to land those punches. And what you can see is that that right hip is doing a great job of not only externally rotating but also falling back in the socket. And this is something that Hunter Green does really well as well. He throws a 102-mile-an-hour fastball. Is that when he's coming around, he's letting that hip right here sink back into the socket as well as going around. And I think that helps you really use those small rotator muscles in the hip, which are very, very important for stability, and that helps you create forces. You have to have that really great stability in order to do that. And you know, another thing that really applies more so to Conor, not so much to you know, throwers in sport, is that he does a great job of being able to really load back in those hips. So as soon as he gets done with that that right kind of uppercut here, he loads back that hip, gets set up, and uses it for that that left straight again. And another thing too is he uses great job, and we can see this in the next one, is using his T-spine. So he does that right rotation in his mid-back or T-spine to really propel that left arm forward and really pushes forward with his upper body by rotating around in that hip. And again, you can see how well he sinks back in that hip, and I think that's such a key thing, especially for pitchers, being able to have really that that range of motion to be able to sink back in that hip, and then also having the strength to be able to maintain that stability of being able to sink back in that hip. So here we'll go to another knockout here, and yeah, the top one's really good where you see that. Watch when he throws this right. That right, he uses it to, you know, he hits him, but it's not supposed to obviously do much damage. But then he uses that right arm, and this is very similar to a pitch, right? See how he's bringing that right arm through, kind of leaning off to the side and landing with that left right to you know, the dude's face. But you can see how well he's really pulling back with that right shoulder, right elbow to really propel that left arm through. They're both kind of working in sync with each other. And another thing too is he's very stable within his head, right? When you can see his chin and his neck, yeah, he leans over to the side because his hip's running out of range of motion, but he's not coming forward with that head. And we'll see in this next one where, you know, coming forward that head is not a good idea just for fighting in general, but also where it ends up helping him out and creating just overall force production. So here he does, I mean, this one, he does a great job of really loading and getting that full rotation within the hip. But notice how the guy that he's fighting, when he's throwing his punch, how his head comes forward and he overextends and lunges out. You'll never see him do anything like this. And I see this a lot of times with throwers where they're having that forward head position. And you can see when he comes back, even though he really could. He has plenty of range to be able to lunge forward that head. You can see he does a great job of keeping that head back. He's just rotating in that hip. He's rotating in that shoulder, getting everything back, but he's keeping that head right centered with the hip. Everything is very well aligned here. He has good overall posture, keeping that head back. It's a little bit forward, but overall, it's in a good position when he lands that left straight there, where he, I guess more left hook when he comes through. But I think the key thing to really, why I wanted to break that down, is just because you can see that there's a great correlation between being able to punch and throw any type of rotational athlete, whether you're punching, whether you're rotating, whether you're golfing. It's all going to be important to effectively move within the spine, and having that good hip stabilization and shoulder stabilization, head positioning. These are all very important factors that we see not only within overhead athletes, but really any athletes that are creating that rotation. And I think Conor McGregor, it's also an interesting person to just look to see how he's effectively utilizing his body to maximize force. And that, he's it's not necessarily he's creating a lot of power in his back hip. He's very good at just rotating around that hip and just being very strong in that rotation. And it's interesting even from my perspective in that he's very strong in his hip rotators more so than anything, and that's just going to help him create that stability overall. I guess the thing that would really probably help him would be to maximize his ability to keep his head in a good position, keeping that chin back. And then also he gets into some positions sometimes where his mid-back gets a little bit flexed, and that might help him in creating power and using more of the pecs. But that's also somewhere that he could probably help out, is really getting a little bit less compression within that middle spine. So another thing that I would probably help out with just be getting some decompression in that middle spine, and also using a little bit more hip extension. I know he's very, very effective at using hip rotation, but starting to get more hip extension while he's trying to create force and pushing off. I think that would really help him in creating and maximizing force within those hips, because he does a great job and he's very strong in his arms and his shoulders right now. He's not as strong at creating force within his hips. He's very good at stabilizing within his hips, which there's a very distinct difference. And I think there's something that there's some areas where he can improve there. So thanks for watching. Check out our other videos. Really, we mostly do throwing type athletes, but today I wanted to show a different sport, but still trying to connect that different sport to some of the other things that we've talked about in the past. So thanks for watching. Check out our YouTube channel, and yeah, we'll have another video up soon.